Right, welcome everybody to SV Animal Health. We are very happy to have you here for the second part of our Wellness Within the Team series. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Miguel, and many of you may recognize him from his previous webinar that we shared in association with Royal Canin back in April. We're very lucky to have him here today. Miguel is both an experienced veterinarian and a coach. He established his own clinic in 1992, which quickly grew from a two-person office to a 24-hour hospital managing a team of 17 staff. After running his hospital for 25 years, he handed it over to his team in 2017 in order to dedicate his time to his great passion, which is coaching. Miguel is the director of New Way Coaching, and his services are aimed towards vets who wish to become better leaders. He's been training vets in leadership, motivational techniques, effective communication, and conflict resolution for over 10 years, and his work now extends beyond Europe and into Asia, as is evidenced with us. His work covers individual coaching sessions, private training, workshops, and conferences. And as of September 2020, he will also be co-author and teacher of the University College of Berkeley program, Veterinary Clinic Management for Young Vets. He has been an international speaker on events on 3 continents and is the author of the book, 7 Keys to Successfully Running a Veterinary Practice. So we are very lucky to have some time with him today to share his insights. And I would also like to introduce Marina, who is a visual facilitator. Her screen is also being shared alongside Miguel, and we are very lucky to witness her talent in action. Visual thinking and live drawing alongside the audio input helps to capture attention, encourage comprehension, and improve memory and recall. So having listened to Miguel speak before, I know he's a great fan of interaction with his doodles. And I'm very excited to witness Marina work firsthand and connect the ideas and themes of today's webinar. So further examples of her work can be found at marinamarisma.com.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Well, yeah, today we are going to talk about feedback, but a special type of feedback. It's feedback that works. And why? Because we want to boost performance and to build a culture of trust in the clinic. And you will see how important it's this word, culture and trust. They really make a difference. But of course, before starting, I would like to say a big, big, big thank you to SV Animal Health and to Royal Canin for, placing all of us together, so distant but so close, in a profession we love, and willing to be successful. So a real big thank you. And before we start with the lecture, I will love to share a personal journey. So when I started my clinic almost 30 years ago, I started with a receptionist, and then we grew this clinic to 17 people. It seemed from the outside, some people could think, wow, Miguel is being very successful because the clinic is growing a lot and very fast. But deep in my heart, I knew I wasn't successful. Just I was failing because I wasn't happy. And I can perfectly remember a pivotal moment, a real special moment when I knew I was going through hell. This was, I had 2 children. They were something like, I think they were 3 or 2 years old. And I still love them, although now they are in their 20s. But this situation when it's very late in the evening, you've been working your socks off, you want to go home. I wanted to be with my wife. I wanted to be with my children. I wanted to kiss them. And that night, again, I was late. So when I was going to arrive home, they were going to be sleeping. And I was really feeling miserable. If that is success, I don't want to be successful anymore. And that particular day, as I was going out of the clinic, the young vet that was on call for the emergency service, she approached me and she asked me, "Hi, boss." And I can perfectly remember her smile. It was sincere, and she asked me, "Hi, boss, I see you struggling. How can I help you?" And you know what? I was caught by surprise. I didn't know what to say. But in my way back to home, of course, I stammer. I said something like, "Oh, thank you," but I didn't know what to say. But on my way back to my home, I was thinking, "Hey, Miguel, of course you need help. But the problem is that you don't know how to ask for help." And that was a very insightful moment, because I realized I was failing in building one-on-one really good connections. I was poor at asking for help, but at the same time, I was failing at being helpful. I was too busy being a vet to be a real, an authentic human being, to be vulnerable and to recognize that I am vulnerable, and to recognize that my people, my staff, my team were also human beings, vulnerable, and that it may happen that they needed help. And after many years, many coaching, many things, I bumped into this beautiful tool that I'm going to share with you now, this Radical Candor tool. It says that when in our relationship with people, there are two axes. But I'm not going to go in detail now. Just give me some seconds, because I'm going to explain you in the next slide what is this Radical Candor tool and the typical journey that we as vets used to live this typical journey. So let me explain this. But first, I want to give credit to a special person. Her name is Kim Scott. When I read her book, Radical Candor, I fell in love with this book. And then I made also a very specific training course about feedback and speaking with Radical Candor. And I want to tell you what is, because we are going to use it along this lecture. What is this about Radical Candor? Well, Kim Scott says, in our interactions with our people, with our team, there's like a vertical axis. And in this axis, if you place yourself here, you really give a damn about your people. You really care about your people. And if you are here, you don't give a damn. You don't care about your people. They are not important to you. Okay? So this axis is about caring. And then there's this horizontal axis is about kicking the ass of your team, is pushing them forward, challenging them. So if you are here, you really push your people out of their comfort zone. And if you are here, you are afraid of pushing people. And this is the journey I normally see. So imagine this picture where, okay, here I care, here I don't care, and here I am direct, I speak in a very direct way, and here I'm not clear enough. So this is a typical journey I see in many, in the career of many vets. So we are here, as I were. We are like in the treadmill, running, very busy, to spend a little bit of time with our teams, very busy to challenge them or to listen to them, because we are very focused on ourselves. From here, it is very easy to go here. Why? Because, okay, from here, if you are very busy and you don't ask people to help you, and you don't ask people, you will become hungry. And hungry, it means hungry because you don't have the time enough to do it, but you will become extremely exhausted. And when you are exhausted, you become angry. And when you are angry, you treat people in an improper way. And then you are extremely direct, but you don't care. And it's only that from here, some people start to understand, the importance of leadership, the importance of, really caring about people. And they come here, they really care, but they care so much, they speak with so much heart that they forget to tell people what they are doing wrong. And this is a funny name that Kim Scott gives to this quadrant. She calls this quadrant the Reno's empathy, because with a lot of empathy, but you can go bankrupt, because nobody will be doing what they are supposed to do, because you want to avoid conflict. And the important thing is moving here being able to speak with your heart and be also at the same time to be very direct. And this is the quadrant of radical candor. And this lecture is going to be about giving and receiving feedback with radical candor. So what is going to be our roadmap? Our roadmap is going to have 4 components. 1, we are going to start soliciting or asking for feedback. Then we are going to talk about how to give feedback to our team or to our employees or even to our bosses. 3, we are going to gauge, to calibrate, to measure how this feedback is landing on ourselves and on the other people. And then we are going to find how to encourage people to give more and to ask for more feedback. So why? If you ask me, yes, Pancho, sorry, Pancho is my nickname. So if you ask me, so Miguel, what is the importance of feedback? Because thanks to feedback, thanks to soliciting, asking, giving, measuring or gauging this feedback, encouraging people to give and ask for feedback, if you do it, you will build a culture where no one will hide or will be able to hide to growing. And this is exactly what you want in your team. People that want to grow, people that want to give their best to your patients, to your clients, to your teammates, to your boss, to your employees, to your every single stakeholder. So, okay, let's start with the first part, soliciting feedback. And let me share with you a funny anecdote. I was when I started to work in a clinic. If there's a vet that wants to improve his leadership, the first thing I ask him is, okay, if you really are serious about improving your leadership, what I'm going to ask you is the name of at least 8 to 10 people that work with you. And what I'm going to ask them, I'm going to ask these people, what are you doing okay? Where is room for you for improvement? And if there's any other thing that they want to tell me about you. And then, with all the things these people tell me, I will create a document. It is called the 360 degrees feedback form. And then I will tell you, hey, this is what the people tell about you. Do you want to do something with that? And if the leader tells me, oh, I don't agree, then I know I cannot work with him, and I will tell him, okay, so we don't have nothing to do. But it never happened to me. What happens is that, okay, people can get really down. Sometimes they are surprised, they are hit by this feedback they get, but this is what they really need to listen. So in this situation, I was speaking with this man, I was giving him the feedback, and at some point I told him, and you know, and your employees, they tell you, or they were telling me that when you listen something that with what you don't agree, when you listen to something that you have a completely different opinion, you become extremely defensive, sometimes even angry, and sometimes even you start shouting or yelling. And he told me, no way, I don't agree with them. It's because blah, blah, blah. And he became defensive. And it was extremely funny and hilarious because I said, do you see it? This is the first thing I've given, the first opinion I've given you from this feedback report. And now you are becoming defensive. Can you see the pattern? So yes, receiving asking is not an easy thing. There's a natural tendency to become defensive. And it is neuroscience. So why is it so difficult to get feedback? It is because of this small thing in our brain. It is called the primitive brain or the dinosaur brain. Let us call it the amygdala. So what happens when the amygdala sees or faces something that considers dangerous? It becomes extremely active. So it becomes extremely active, and the amygdala has 2 types of natural reactions. For amygdala, it's very natural to become defensive or to fight. It's the normal fight or flight response. So when we ask for feedback, we need to know that we have to fight against the tyranny of the amygdala, and if we are going to listen to something that we don't like, it's going to be highly probable that we are, do you know this saying? We are going to be tempted to kill the messenger. So the people or the person who is giving us the feedback that we need to listen, but we don't want to listen, maybe this person is going to get hurt by our reaction. So what's the challenge? The challenge is to shut up our mouths when we are receiving this feedback. The challenge is to listen with curiosity, to really understand the perspective of the person who is sharing her or his feedback about us. To stay curious, because it's some people say, oh, I'm good at listening, but they are not good at listening. But they are listening in order to respond in a very fast way. But no, we need to listen carefully, to try to understand, to stay really curious to understand the other perspective. The best way to do it is to be able from time to time, it is called chunk and check. So as you are getting the information from the other part, my advice is, okay, try to put in your own words what the other person was saying. And if you say, for example, so what you are telling me is that I am poor at listening because I tend to interrupt you. Is that what you want to tell me? If the other person tells you, exactly, this is what I want to tell you, you are doing a great job at listening. You can only get the exactly if you have really, really listened carefully. And then, once you've gone through all these listening steps, you have to commit to do something. One single step, but if the other person has given you as an advice so that you can improve your behavior as a leader or as an employee, commit to one step. But here, of course, there is a challenge. So if you ask me, yeah, Miguel, that's perfect, but what if the other person, excuse me, gives me a feedback with which I don't agree? Okay, then imagine that it is very difficult not to get at least a tiny percentage of the feedback that you get. It is very difficult to don't agree with it. So if you listen carefully, it's going to be highly probable that at least you are going to agree with 5, 10, or even 15% with the message of the other person. Then build from there. This first step of your new behavior, build it from there. And then only afterwards, show a lot of respect about the other opinion, and in a very descriptive way, not judging the other opinion, but in a very descriptive way, explain them why you don't agree with the other part of the message. But this will work, and you know why? Because if you remember the thing about the amygdala, if you start with a yes, if you start saying, okay, I agree with this tiny percentage, this amygdala will stay calm. But if you do it the other way around, if you become defensive and you say, okay, I don't agree with this 90%, the amygdala will become highly inflammable, highly active, and nothing will come out of this conversation. So start from here. Even if you don't agree, try to think about this small percentage. And there is a beautiful, beautiful magic move. This magic move, when asking for feedback, this is going to surprise your team. You are going to love it, but they are going to love it even more. And this is the reason why I have designed or drawn this diamond. And the thing is, imagine, of course, you don't need to do this in every single conversation, but from time to time, Imagine having a conversation with your employee, and then at some point in the conversation, keeping eye contact with a smile and in a very sincere way, with your heart, in your hand. Imagine asking your employee or even your boss, what can I do? Or what can I stop doing to help you work better? And I tell you, especially if you are the boss, if you ask this question, they are blown away. So what you need to do is, of course, it's going to happen, highly probably it's going to happen what happened to me. They are not going to be able to answer you, but then keep eye contact, keep smiling, count 1, 2, 3, 5, even 8. And then if they still are struggling to give you a response, then ask the same question again. And if they are not able to give you an answer, okay, tell them, give it a thought, and we will speak in a few days. And then, and only then, if they give you honest feedback, try to build from there, try to change your behavior, try to improve, try to lead by example. 2 final tips about asking for feedback. Acknowledge and reward the feedback. Why? Because they are taking a risk. Imagine giving feedback to your boss. They are really taking a risk. So it takes a lot of courage to speak truth to power. And that's the kind of people you need. And if the only thing you get from them is judgment, you will learn how to stop them judging you, but start helping them to be supportive and to help you grow, giving very descriptive feedback, as we are going to see now. And now we are entering the second part of the lecture, which is giving feedback. And I need to share with you an anecdote, real anecdote. Lucia is a very common name in Spain. This is what happened. At that time, I was the boss of the clinic, and I had a director of the hospital, and then I had a person, a senior vet, who was in charge of the emergency team. So one day, this person told me, hey, Miguel, I have been working with this vet, which was Lucia. I think Lucia is not improving. And poor of me, I say, and she told, and I asked this person, which was, well, E, let's call her E. I asked this person, what is Lucia doing wrong? And she told me, she has a poor behavior, a poor attitude. Okay. And then, do you want me, I asked her, do you want me to speak with her? And she told me, yes, because I'm not being able to change her behavior. So I went to Lucia, and this is the feedback I gave her. So poor. Please never do what I did. So I arrived there and I said, Lucia, I have been speaking with your supervisor. She's not very happy with you. And I need to tell you that if you don't change your attitude, it's going to be very difficult for you to stay working in this clinic. And Lucia, very surprised, with tears in her eyes, looked into my eyes and asked me, hi, boss. They always call me boss. I don't know why, but they call me boss. And she asked me, but boss, what do you mean by attitude? And you know what? I didn't know what to tell her. I felt completely miserable. There was a bad boss giving a very extremely poor feedback to an employee that really, really wanted to succeed. And that, for me, it was a very, I don't know how to say, a very impactful lesson. And that day, I decided I was going to study as much as I could about feedback. This happened maybe 14 years ago, or even more. So I started to study a lot about feedback. And once I thought I knew a lot about feedback, I wrote an article. And this article was launched in a very famous magazine, veterinary magazine in Spain, and then I dedicated this paper to Lucia. And then I'm very proud of saying that, of course, Lucia, after some months, she left our hospital with my help, of course, for being such a poor boss. But now we are very close friends, and she knows that poor experience helped me to improve my leadership. But I fully regret about my behavior in that particular time. So what's the more important thing about giving feedback? The most important thing is that giving feedback is about helping people to perform better. It is not to become really good friends. If you can become really good friends, perfect, but it's about helping people to perform better. Helping is the word. We want to help people. And it has two components. It has one component when you reinforce the behavior of someone thanks to your feedback, when you praise people, and the other one when you want to correct some poor behavior and you do it by criticizing people. And that's very important. Some people call this one positive feedback and this one negative feedback, but no way this is negative feedback. Because if I am failing to do something, if I'm failing to behave properly, I want someone to correct me. And if they do it in the right way, this is not going to be negative. This is going to be positive. So if the goal is helping people is always going to be positive. If you reinforce or even if you correct. And there's two ways that you can approach feedback. And this is extremely important to keep in mind, please. So these are the two ways. Oh, sorry, that's something, okay. You need to work with a microcosmos of very short conversations with radical candor, being direct, of course, and also caring about people. And you need to have all these conversations daily, but maybe 1 or 2 minutes conversation. The only thing you need there is to say, to tell people, hey, good job, thanks for helping me, watch out, you are being late, whatever. You need to reinforce or to correct people very, very frequently with this microcosmos of very short conversations. And then from time to time, from me, time to time, it means something like once a week or every 2 other weeks, you need this a little bit longer conversation, something like 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes, to touch ground, to have a more meaningful conversation, to really, really show you care. And you need to combine both to give really, meaningful feedback. And honestly, if you get this right, you will build a really strong culture in your clinic. When you work, excuse me, I want to come back to this slide because I think this is very important. Imagine this is something that it is taught in many business schools. So when there's someone that starts to work in your clinic, these people start working, some of them really perform, and some of them are really top performers. And some of them even will leave the clinic because they want new challenges. It's okay, it's natural, you don't have to become defensive. And then there's other people come to the clinic, they work, and they don't experience this need of new goals, new challenges, new specialties, whatever. So these people need stability. Okay. You need both in your teams. In fact, stable people will give you a lot of stability. But it happens that one person in one moment of his life can change from being a top performer to become a person that needs stability. And just the other way around. Maybe a person that was very stable now because maybe her or his children are grown up, and maybe this person has more time. Maybe this person now wants to be challenged. Or it can even happen that some of these persons start to misbehave, to not perform, and then they need to be challenged or to be invited to leave the clinic. And how do you know what's going on in the mind of these people? Only because of these conversations. So these conversations will help you understand what's going on in the head and in the soul of your team. So when giving feedback, you need to be very descriptive. You need to be like a camera who was saying what was going on. And there's a beautiful tool that I learned from the Center for Creative Leadership, and it talks about giving feedback, which is called the SBI, and it stands for situation, behavior, and implications. This is the real and best way I've ever seen to give feedback, to keep it extremely specific. Because if you are not descriptive, you will be judging people. And judging people is not feedback. So let me share an example with you. So imagine this situation. In our last 3 meetings, I've observed that you were constantly checking your mobile, slouching, and crossing your arms without taking any notes and never sharing an opinion. That's a behavior. But you can even repeat it. And in fact, in our last meeting, we had an important issue: improving our appointment protocol. So besides that behavior, you interrupted Clara to complain about 2 things that were not part of the goal of the meeting: your summer holidays and some problems with the infusion pump. And that, now we go for the implications, that made Clara and me feel annoyed. And Laura from reception too, because Laura, she was really interested in the meeting because of all the trouble she deals with every day at the reception. Your behavior made us lose focus, and it seemed your personal interests were more important than the team interest. So with this type of feedback, you can say that you have spoken with radical candor. You have been really direct. So you care because you were not judging, you were describing. And now you are helping the other person to become aware of these poor behaviors and to make something with them. If you want to remember how to give feedback, there's a funny acronym. So remember this acronym, HIP, and it stands for helpful. Whenever you give feedback, be helpful. Be humble, because what you are sharing is your perspective and not the truth. So remember to be humble. Try to do it in a very immediate way. Especially if you are going to correct someone, do it in private. And don't forget to keep it periodic. And another very important thing is, we as bosses, and I mastered this mistake in the past, we are really good at focusing when our employees are doing things wrong. But most of us, we have more, we are more successful than the failures that we mistake. So it's very important to focus on the good stuff. And if you are going to give this type of feedback, remember to try to catch people doing the right thing. Okay, so remember, when giving feedback, the more you wait, the poorer the results. And the more specific the behavior that you can describe, the better the results will be. And now, let's jump into this third part: gauging, calibrating, measuring. It is about becoming aware of how it is landing. How is landing the feedback you are getting? How are you getting it? How are you feeling? And how is it landing also the feedback you are giving on the other person? You need to check the level of energy in you and also in the other person. And of course, if you see that the impact is being very undesired, you need to adapt the message, as you are going to see now with some examples. you need to become aware that communication, 80% is non-verbal and 20% is verbal. So when giving or asking for feedback, try to do it always present, face to face. If that's not possible, then do it through a mobile or through a video call or whatever. Okay, that's extremely important. And last, and try to escape from this, giving or receiving feedback through a text. Because through a text, through a WhatsApp, it's very, very difficult to realize this 80% of the communication. So let's see how to adapt this message. So imagine you have an employee that is not performing. This person is a good employee, he's a good surgeon, and he's good with clients, but he's very late with his appointments, and he makes people wait too long, and he's starting to be also late to the clinic, arriving late. So you have a conversation with this person with whom you have a really good relationship, and you ask this person, so imagine his name was Miguel, and you tell this person, hey Miguel, I see you are doing a great job, your surgeries are going okay, but I'm afraid your consultations are taking too long and clients are waiting for too long, and we are having some complaints at the reception. And this person is not taking it or considering your message very, very clearly. This person seems to be like, as if she was listening to some music. So in that cases, what you need to do is, okay, keeping your message here, so showing that you care. In this case, what you have to do is you have to go to the right, to go here, and to move this axis to the challenge or to be more direct. So this is the moment to tell someone, hey, I see I'm going to be more direct. I see you are not getting my message. Stop it. I don't want you to be late. Stop it. I don't want you to, to run these consultations for an hour. Stop it. So you want to be very clear. You want to move this axis here to the right when you got someone that is not getting the message. But what if we got this different situation? What if you are delivering your message, giving feedback, and the other person starts crying? And this is, unfortunately, this is very common. In these cases, of course, increase the candor. You need to move this up. So increase the candor as much as you can. But please, 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 keep it direct. Because it's very, very common for many leaders when they see someone crying, they say, the temptation is to go here and say, but to be honest, it's not so important. Don't get so sad. It's not so important, blah, blah, blah. And then the original message vanishes. And then you are not doing the job you were supposed to do, because you are not speaking with radical candor. You are speaking with candor, but you are not being radical or direct. And the last tip is, sometimes when people start crying, of course they do it because they get very emotional, and they are emotionally trapped. And in order to help them escape from this trap, you can ask, what are you thinking? This beautiful question helps people to become more rational and to start thinking in a more abstract way, not so emotional. And it can help the conversation to keep the conversation, very caring conversation, but keep it direct. And okay, now we arrive to this third scenario. The other person becomes angry. You have delivered your message, your feedback, you have tried to be very descriptive, but the other person becomes extremely becomes angry. It's not getting the message. Then here, the trap is abdicating. Many people, when the other person becomes angry, they move here in order to be not so direct. Don't do it. Don't abdicate. Don't give in. If feedback was honest, sincere, it was real, don't give in. Of course, check you are not judging but describing. Check you are not judging or insulting the other person in no means, but check you are describing. And please listen carefully, because people, when angry, they tend to tell the truth. And maybe behind that anger, there's something that you need to listen. So keep it here, try to increase the candor, but please don't get defensive. And then some final tips about sharing. Sharing this feedback, this tool makes sense if all the people in the clinic are able to give feedback and to receive feedback to all their teammates, to the boss, to nurses, to surgeons, to veterinarians, to technicians, wherever. It needs to be, all directions tool. And you need to know, I love this quote from Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker was like one of the best and more brilliant minds. He was almost like a philosopher. He spoke about bringing humanity to the workplace. And he said, culture has a strategy for breakfast every single day. And what does it mean? It means that, okay, you can have a clinic with a perfect strategy, with a lot of technology, with the best specialists, with the best pieces of equipment, with all those things. But if the culture of your clinic is poor, if the culture is insincere, if people hurt each other, if people speak badly about someone when he's not present, if people, they don't trust each other, if they tell lies, no matter how good is your strategy and your technology, culture will destroy it. So you need to build a culture of trust, and a culture of growing. And you can only do it by providing people very frequent feedback. And this feedback will help you to build a nowhere to hide growing culture. You don't want your people to be the best. You want your people to be the best they can. And you can help them to be this type of people. And of course, they can help you also to be the best leader you can. And for that reason, you need to listen, and you also need to give, to talk and to give feedback to your teams. There's to make it 360 degree. It takes a lot of courage to become vulnerable in public. But I want to share with you a beautiful anecdote that I listened from Kim Scott. And she told me, to the rest of the people in the training, there was a man who arrived to a company, and now he was the new CEO. And when he started to know the company, he saw that there was people were afraid about feedback. They were not giving, they were not good at giving and taking feedback. And he said, okay, I need to lead by example. So he started to ask to the board of directors about feedback. And you know what? He wasn't getting any type of feedback because due to the culture of that company, they were afraid. They were afraid about speaking truth to power. And he said, what can I do? What can I do to empower my team without forcing them to give me feedback that they are scared to do? And what he did, he developed this orange box. So he asked people to write something about him, to write feedback for him, to put it in a note, and they could do it in an anonymous way. So in every single team meeting, this brave volunteer, this brave boss, he will take one note, read it aloud, and say, for example, okay, this person is saying that I tend to interrupt. From now on, I will try to stop it. I will try to stop interrupting you, and I will try to become a better listener. So he started to do that, and he was really committed. And after some months, he started to have people, instead of placing notes here, he started to have people to give him feedback. And then he started, because people were seeing he's changing, he's growing as a leader, some of these people started to ask also for feedback. I think that's an amazing example of leadership. It's an amazing example of how tough it takes to get feedback, and why it is important, and so important, if you want to introduce this in your clinic, to start asking for feedback instead of giving feedback, just to taste the flavor, to know how it tastes to receive feedback. Please combine frequent, immediate, spontaneous talks with a scheduled feedback conversation. Remember the 1 to 2 or even 3 minute conversations with these 15 to minute conversation pre-scheduled. Some final tips. Please start learning listening skills. Listening is the core of communication, but too many people, unfortunately, few people learn how to listen. Try to be very descriptive when giving feedback. Remember, be specific. Describe the behavior and, of course, the implications. And remember, for the implications, remember this drawing with different perspective. Please try to keep in mind about the implications. What are the implications for the patient, for the family of the patient, for the clients of the pet, for your teammates, for you, for your boss, for the profession? And then, once you know how to listen, once you know how to ask for feedback, once you know how to give feedback, teach it. Teach it to the rest of the team. Do formal training about it. Invest time there, because it's going to be a game changer. Summarizing, remember the 4 steps: solicit feedback, giving feedback, gauging how is it landing, encouraging people to give and receive feedback. And remember, please, there is no comfort in the learning zone, and there is no learning in the comfort zone. If you are thinking, oh, but I'm being the boss, I'm not happy with this idea of my employees telling me if I am being, a good boss or not, challenge yourself, go there, exit your comfort zone, and then you will learn so many things. Please become aware of what trail do you leave behind. Do you leave people happy after speaking with you? Do you leave people wanting to grow, or do you leave people hurt? Do you leave people feeling down? Remember this saying, this is the title of a nice book. I cannot remember the author of the book, but he says, help them grow or watch them go. And please keep in mind, if you challenge your employees to grow and they are not happy, is that the type of employees you want in your company, in your clinic? Or imagine an employee that doesn't want to grow. What is going to be the impact in your clinic? If you don't challenge them, the best players, they will leave you. And you don't want to keep your clinic with people that don't want to be challenged. And I think that's all. Please give and ask for feedback, gauge it, help people to grow. And again, thank you very much for being here. SB Animal Health, Royal Canin, thank you very much. I hope this is going to get, more people, employees, clients wanting to choose your clinic. Maybe it's going to help you to grow. And remember, here are my contact details in case you want to phone me or to send me an email. Thank you very much. Looking forward to see you.
Thank you very much, Miguel. This has been a brilliant talk, and particularly topical, I think. I do have a few questions that we've had from some of the clinicians that hopefully will now be listening to this. If you have the time, that would be brilliant. And I think the first one probably comes back to what you were talking about with the non-verbal and verbal communication, with 80% being non-verbal. I think with a lot of our clinics have been operating in teams during the restrictions and the lockdown that we had. So there's been just less contact between, some managers and members of their team. And one of the questions we had was that one of the practice managers here has found that people are a bit more sensitive than perhaps they used to be before everything that's been happening with COVID, and that some communications have been potentially misunderstood. So ways in which he can sort of limit the ambiguity and make his message clearer, particularly if you're not seeing people face to face. So a lot of that non-verbal communication is being lost. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, I love this question. I fully agree. This is happening everywhere. It's extremely painful, but I think we can help with a couple of tips. First, I fully agree with you, Hannah. It's about non-verbal communication. So I call this the iceberg effect. Let me do this drawing. So what is the iceberg effect? So you are getting this message here, and there's something below that, you're not sure what's going on. There's maybe something you were not able to listen or to hear perfectly, or because of the connection, or maybe because of the nonverbal language, or maybe because it was, I don't know. But the important thing is, go here. It's going to take courage, but go here and ask. It's something like, excuse me, I'm not completely sure. Is this what you want to tell me? But you remember, you need to paraphrase. You need to double check if you understood it correctly. Or even if you see that the other person is crossing his arms and with a expression of sadness or of anger, you need to ask, excuse me, you told me yes, but I got this, gut feeling that something is that maybe you are not okay with the idea. Am I correct? So we need to challenge ourselves. There's a famous saying from Joseph Campbell. He says, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you are seeking. So we need to go there. We need to double check. We need to ask. We need to clarify. And only then communication will be clear again. I guess this has been of help. But
I think so. I think we're all learning in this new way of working. We've probably got to adapt the way that we communicate too, which is another challenge that we're dealing with. But that's fantastic. I think we also have a question regarding what to do. Sort of, I suppose, the worst case scenario when you're trying to help someone to grow and grow within your practice in your clinic, and you've had several conversations giving valuable feedback, but they aren't responding, in the way that you would like. How do you progress in this situation and get the best outcome for everybody involved, even if that might mean, as you say, leaving the practice?
Yeah, that happens. Unfortunately, this happens. So imagine you've got the situation where you've got many short conversations with this employee. Of course, some of these conversations you have been able to find or to catch this person doing things right. So some of these conversations have gone, in a very good ways. You are happy with them. But it happens that this person, for we don't know what reason, is not responding to the feedback, and he or she is keeping this poor behavior constantly. And it's not only happening in your daily interactions, but also, in your weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings. This person is not responding. And what's even worse, this person says, I fully agree with your feedback. I'm going to do something to change it. But then this person never does nothing to change it. So what can you do? Of course, you could keep this for years, but it makes no sense. So if there's no trust, if someone is telling you that is going to change something, and at the end it's not changing, you cannot trust that people because he's not keeping his word or her word. Will you work with someone that you cannot trust? And I think that's one of the occasions when you need to consider to invite these people to find another job. Because if not, I see constantly so many vets with an underperforming or a misbehaving employee, and this boss cannot focus on the right thing and on the right people. He's always angry. He's always focusing on this person with the wrong behavior. Invite this person to leave the company. This is the moment, and this is where it pays off this work that you have done. Because now there is no doubt, maybe it's going to be extremely painful for you, but there is no doubt that you need to do your job. And as a leader, your job is to help people grow. And if they don't want to grow, to invite them to grow in another different garden. Does it make sense, Hannah?
It does, yes. How do you find, sort of following on from this, that at the moment everybody's under stresses that we couldn't have predicted at the beginning of the year, but also that you know, it's kind of fallen on everybody differently depending on probably their natural resilience and their sort of natural personality, but also people's individual circumstances. Like you may have employees who have spouses who've lost their job and they're under sort of greater financial pressure than sort of other employees, shall we say. How do you find a balance to sort of treat everybody fairly, but give some people a little bit more of a, what's the word, a bit of a break, particularly if they're not performing the way you think that they should, but you know, you can understand the reasons behind it. And then also, how can you avoid sort of that deficit in performance coming back to you and you having to be the person under the most pressure because you're the leader, you're in charge? How do you avoid sort of falling apart with all of that pressure on top?
Yeah, good question. Love this question, Hannah. Well, first thing, a story has come to my mind, such a beautiful story. And I shared this happened to a client of mine, a coaching client. I shared this story in a congress in Florence. And some people attending the congress, they told me, we were in tears with this story. So this is the story. I taught this client this technique. You need to talk frequently with your employees, and you need these weekly conversations to touch ground. Okay, so he went to this, it was the first weekly meeting that he had with nurse of the hospital, and he was going to tell this nurse, I don't like your behavior because, you know, out of 5 days, 3 days you become very serious, 1 day you become angry, and then only 1 day you are happy. What's going on? But luckily, and thanks God, he asked first, how are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. He started this conversation in a very nice way to connect with this person. And it was at that particular moment that he asked this nurse, well, how are you doing? How are your relationships? But he meant the relationship with her teammates, with the surgeons, with the vets. And this poor young lady, she understood how were her relationship with his at home, which of course it's completely inappropriate to ask. But given the non-verbal message, even the non-verbal message that the boss was sending, and it was a sincere message, this young lady told her boss, you know what, thanks for asking, but I am struggling. My father hurts my mother. In my house, what I live is hell, real hell on earth. And my relationship with my boyfriend is the same. I'm going through a very dark period in my life, so for me it's very difficult to be happy. Thanks for asking, boss. And then the boss suddenly changed his mind and he said,
yeah,
you know what I want to tell you? Where do you find the strength and the courage to smile at least one day? Where do you find this courage? I'm completely shocked that you still have the courage and the strength to come to the clinic with this smile. And then she started to cry. She asked permission to hug him. And she told him, you know, boss, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And from that particular moment, she started to perform better. She started to come to the workplace with a smile, just because he was able to see the person in her full humanity. So yes, it's thanks to these conversations that you will discover when people is going down. And then you will discover when you need to kick their asses or to really be helpful. But you can only discover if you have these authentic human being conversations. Does it make sense?
Oh, it does. It does. I used to find when I was in the clinics, I remember it very clearly, I had an angry phone call from a lady because I hadn't managed to get her. She had submitted a sample from her dog and we hadn't heard back from the lab. And when I explained that I just hadn't heard, she blew up a bit on the phone. And I remember I was a bit younger and just a bit sort of shocked. And I remember one of my older colleagues saying to me, just bear in mind that you don't know what happened. You know, obviously something else is going on. So if I were you, I would pick up the phone, give yourself a bit of time to calm down, pick up the phone and just ask her if everything is okay, that you're very sorry, and reiterate that you'll chase the lab results. So I did do that. Even though I was a bit, I would rather probably not have picked up the phone again. I did do that. And it turned out that the lady had a few health problems of her own and worries that she was going through. And she explained all that. And then she did apologize and said, I didn't mean to speak to you that way. And I thought if I hadn't picked up the phone, I wouldn't have known. And I would have felt worried the next time I saw her when I did have to phone her with the results. And I'm sure she probably would have done as well. But if you don't ask, you don't know, do you? And I used to find as a vet, people would tell you a lot of sort of personal things from your clients in the consult room because you were almost like a safe space. Sometimes it's easier to tell a stranger or someone that little bit further less attached to you than it is to talk to family members and friends. So I can imagine that's a good place for a boss to sort of to step in, perhaps.
Yeah.
In
but
that
even
situation.
I love this. Sherry, thank you for sharing this, Anna. But I think that was your cave, and you had the courage to enter the cave, and the treasure is going to be always there. So feedback for the clinic owner, who knows? Maybe the clinic owner, maybe some of the people watching this webinar, some of them will say, "Oh, I need to be more direct. I tend to hide from conflict." Others will be thinking, oof, I need to bring a little bit more of humanity to the workplace. Or maybe an employee will say, oh, I see my boss is struggling and I never ask him if I could help him. So, in life, there's a lesson for every one of us. And the beauty of it is that normally this lesson is behind this, at the end of this cave. And we find the courage to go there. There are amazing treasures waiting for us.
Yes, I agree. I have one last question, if you've the time, Miguel. And this one is, I think this would be very relevant, not just from the boss's point of view, but also for team members. If you were, for example, either a nurse who's just been promoted to the head nurse position, I can imagine this might come up frequently, or a vet being promoted to the senior vet, how do you make that transition from being, a member of the team and having sort of colleagues that are in the same position as you to all of a sudden potentially having some sort of superiority or being in charge of those people? How do you transition smoothly and get them to respect you in your new position?
Wow, yeah, great question, Anna. Also, okay, for me, one of the most common, a very frequent mistake from people that have been promoted is that they become excessively proud of themselves. No, so there's a risk of becoming arrogant or boastful or too much of everything. So be careful. As we said, be humble. With power comes responsibility. So be helpful. That for me the most important thing. People in a top position, they are there not to be served, but to serve people. So if you are being promoted, try to help people. And you need to be very patient. Some of your friends will still see you as the past. You are the same person, but with different responsibilities. And I love this English saying, good fences make good neighbors. So bring these new fences in a very clear way, with a lot of respect, in a very humble way, but don't let people get confused, because if not, you will not be doing what you are supposed to do. And the trust that has been given to you when you were promoted, you are not going to earn the right to lead people. So good fences make good neighbors, and lead in a very humble way, support people, but do whatever you are supposed to do.
Goes back to the radical candor as well, I suppose, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Definitely.
Direct, but with a lot of candor.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Anna.
No problem. Thank you so much. That's the end of my questions for now. So thank you ever so much for your time, Miguel. I know you must be busy at the moment, and hopefully, perhaps one day in the future, you might be able to visit us here and hold something like this with an actual audience rather than by Zoom, which would be wonderful.
I would love that. I would love that. I think we all miss, being together, hugging each other, and meeting in person, but.
Yeah, no Zoom covers that, does it? It doesn't make up for it, unfortunately. We'd have you back at a It's all right. I said we'd have you back at a nicer time of year. It's a little bit unfriendly, I'd say. We're getting quite warm now. So we definitely have you back at a different time of year where we can be more hospitable, put it that way.
But whatever, if it happens, I even will go swimming. So
wonderful.
I love that. So brilliant. Thank you very much again for your trust and for your support. And I hope I was able to give back as much as all the value you have given to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to Marina as well. All right. Thank you so much. I won't waste more of your time or take up any more of your time. It's certainly not been a waste. I hope you have a lovely rest of your afternoon. And I will be in touch when we've started getting some clicks and let you know how we're getting on. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. Have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you very much again. Okay?
All right. Take care, Miguel. Thank you.
Bye-bye.